Welcome Pissweek Running World fans. A bit of a different video this time. Calling this one My Road to Marathon Glory. Just going through my journey from just before getting into marathon running, my first marathon, through to when I achieved my goal time for the marathon distance. So getting straight into it, I was a race walker for 14 years prior, and I did a little bit of, about 18 months worth of gym work in between. In 2006, when I was 20, I had a tear in the lateral side of my meniscus, and I had a piece ripped right out of the back of the meniscus, so I went in for surgery, went through the rehab process, and in June 2007, I retore my knee, while race walking. So that got repaired. Surgeon said, "You're not to race walk ever again." And I went, well, that's fine. Was quite happy with that because I was never going to get back to where I was, and I wasn't overly enjoying doing what I was doing at the time anyway. So I then thought, well, I'll hit the gym. I was going to the gym 5 days a week, starting to lift heavier weights, started taking some supplements, bulking up, lifting a lot of heavier, more so lower body, because having come from a race walking background, it was leg days every day, so lower leg exercises were my priority. But I had gone from race walking days, I was sort of between 66 and 69 kilo. I went out to about 82 kilo, which was a lot of muscle. I'd got a bit fatter in that too, because I wasn't doing the cardio. I was still doing cardio, but I was doing about 10 to 15 minutes worth. So I'd bulked up, and then the thing that got me out of the gym was calf raises. Was the thing that I really wanted to lift heavier and heavier, and I wanted to get to 700-pound calf raises, which is about 320 kilos. And because of my weakened knee, my left knee, which was the dominant leg, even though the muscles surrounding the knee were very strong, it was starting to cave under the weight, and the right leg was doing a lot of compensating, which was really throwing things out of whack. So I wasn't really going to get to that goal weight doing calf raises. So I jumped out of that, went back into running, and started doing some short stuff. Now, the very first 3K that I did, just as a sort of round the block thing, I got to about 1.5 K, and I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. This is getting hard. You think I've done 3K many a time, and it was just because of all the extra weight. When you've gone from being 66 kilos and you're now 82, makes it a lot harder. But anyway, I was able to shed a lot of the weight relatively quickly. But this is in 2008. I had a look ahead, and I thought, I might have a crack at a marathon. Now, my dad had run plenty of marathons himself, and I asked him in about October, I think it was 2008, I said, how long would it take me to get prepared for a marathon? Now, I don't have the exact number, and I'm sure he'll correct me on this, but I believe it was somewhere between 18 months to 2 years that he'd said that it would take me to get ready for the marathon, do the marathon. And I'm thinking to myself, beforehand I'd think, maybe you'll say 6 months or something. So it was a bit of a shock. I'm thinking, well, geez, it's going to be 2011 by the time I get this right. I'll get into that later, how that actually became quite relevant. But anyway, I set my sights on the Canberra Marathon 2009 in April. I had done relatively well in the longer runs. Obviously, you want to look at your longest run being sort of between 30 and 35k. I did want to break 3 hours on the first attempt, which in hindsight was a very stupid decision. Setting a time goal on your first marathon is not something that I would ever recommend to someone. I'll get into that later as well. But I wanted to break 3 hours. I wanted to break my dad's best time at 2:59.52. 35 K's, I think I was doing somewhere around 2:34, 2:35 pace. And I got my 30K, I'd started around 2:12 and I got it down to, I was consistently nailing 2:06 for 30K. And I was relatively happy with that. The thing is, I was falling off the cliff after 30K, but I was consistently hitting around the 2:06 flat mark. Went into my first half marathon in March on a bit of a hilly course, and I did 1:23.46. I sort of blew up around 15-16K with a whole lot of climbing to go in the last bit, but got through that. I thought, well, that's probably a good guide on where I'm at. And then comes Canberra Marathon in April. Run the first 10K around the Parliamentary Triangle from Tilapia Park. Then I did the first out and back to Glenlock Interchange and that, so you come back round, you go under Kings Avenue Bridge and then you loop around and go back up again. There's two 16K loops. Felt quite comfortable through the first 26K or so. Went back up Kings Avenue Bridge and that was starting to hurt. And it's a minor climb back towards Parks Way, but you notice it later in the piece. You know, it's those little rises all start to throw off the rhythm and that. The run along Parks Way, not too bad. Got towards 30K. Now 30K is just before what I like to call the Yellow Bridge, the Yellow Tunnel, which is that tunnel. It's about 200-300 metres long with all the yellow lights, 3 lanes wide heading out of the city. And I went through 30K in 2:05.54. So I was bang on where I was at in training. Problem was, a couple hundred metres after that, I was walking. I'd hit the wall and it was going to be a long 12K to the finish. And it was up, and Glenlock Interchange is a bit up and down, that sort of Parks Way out that bit. But kept going along, and a lot of people, out supporting and that, giving you as much motivation as possible. You sort of, people are giving you all this encouragement, and you're like, oh yeah, well, whatever, I'm giving it my best, but you sort of slightly negative thoughts. But anyway, got back up on the Commonwealth Avenue Bridge, went just past 38K. There was a marshal there, an official, who was giving a bit of support, and I looked at him. I was just walking at the time, and I said, there's nothing that's going to stop me finishing this run. And it wasn't. You get to 38K, you're not stopping. Coming back in towards Tilapia Park in the last 500 metres or so, there was a group of us all going up and down the one spot. It was actually quite funny because we were going nowhere fast, but we were pushing as hard as we could, and we were all trying to outdo each other down this road. So across the finish line, 3:12.36 was the first time around the finished marathon, first attempt. Outside of what I wanted to do, sort of beat myself up about it a bit, because obviously I'd set a time goal and I said I want to do this, this, this and this, and it's all going to be easy, and you learn very quickly that it isn't. So anyway, I had a look at Melbourne Marathon, was the next one on the agenda, which I thought after you run your first one, you think, oh, I'm never going to run a marathon again. 2 days later, you're like, ooh, another marathon. Some of the things that go on in your mind when you're a distance runner. So I put in for the Melbourne Marathon. I'd started running with a group. I started following a bit of a training guide, which was really more targeted at short distance running. I was doing a longer distance run, partially by myself, then with a group. For the second part, it wasn't too bad, but a lot of the stuff was really, it was really short distance stuff, and I thought it may help, but no. Anyway, so I entered the Melbourne Marathon, October 2009, take off, and I was running with the 3-hour pace runner, and so were a lot of people. And we got to about 2k, and they have signs that they put up at each kilometre. And the guy looked at his watch, and it said 9:40 or something like that on his watch, and he sort of freaked out, and he takes off, and we're like, whoa, hang on, yeah. As a word of advice, in the first 5 or 6k of the Melbourne Marathon, do not take any notice of the kilometre signs, because they are completely out of whack. They are not accurate at all, and they will mess you up big time. So anyways, this pace runner is burning up St Kilda Road towards Fitzroy Street, and one of the runners in the group looked at his watch at one point there, and he said, and I can't remember exactly what the time was, but it was either a high 340 or a low 350 kilometre, which was way too fast. So you get up on the Fitzroy Street, turn into Albert Park, just behind the 6k, just behind Junction Oval, where there's a drink station too. We were on 24 flat, way too fast. But I thought, well, maybe we'll hang on. Kept going. Started to drop off the pack, on the pack, off the pack, on the pack, off the pack. By 22, 23k, I wasn't really going anywhere. Started to walk, run. About 27, 28k, I got passed by the 310 or 315 pace balloon, and at about 28, 29k, I pulled the pin. And it wasn't about, I was in the mindset of it, I was never going to get the goal time, and it wasn't worth the effort, and all the stuff that you shouldn't focus on. There was no mental toughness that day. None at all. Which, when you run is 20% physical, 80% mental. If you haven't got the mental toughness there, there's probably not much point starting, really. So, kept away for a bit. Had a look at the Gold Coast Marathon going into 2010 in July. Fastest, flattest course in Australia. Gold standard event, by far the premier event. Entered that, had got my 30k time down a couple of minutes, got my 35k time down into the mid 220s. I was comfortable through to about 35k in that run, sort of skipping through a lot of it because there's not a whole lot of relevance to a lot of it there. Did a little bit of a walk run in from there into the finish. Finished in 3:04.26. Was happy with that. 8-minute PB. Still wanted to run 3 hours that time, but I was a lot closer. So I was a lot more positive. From there, I entered the Melbourne Marathon again. 10th of the 10th, 2010. I knew I was almost there with what I was doing with my running. And so a lot of during the week was like a 5k in the morning just to go around the block. Afternoon was about 8 to 12k. Might throw in the odd speed session, but it was really just about getting consistency with the running. Running fast, but running consistent. So enter the Melbourne Marathon, take off, and I thought I was running okay. I don't know what the first kilometre was, but I think kilometres 2, 3 and 4 were like 4:21, 4:24, 4:26. And I'm thinking, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm way off the pace. I'm not running how I should be. This is, and this is the sort of negativity. This is why I say to people, don't focus on your watch. Don't look at your GPS watch. Don't do this. Don't let your watch control your mind. Because it was giving me a lot of negative feedback, and it was making me panic and When you start panicking, you start thinking irrational, and it's not a good thing. So that got me in the mindset of I was going to pull out at 5K. Like, the race is over. I'm not running what I want. This is going to take me 4 hours. This is going to be stupid. And I was going to throw, 12 weeks of preparation down the toilet because my watch was telling me I was running slow. So I punted along, and I got to about that 6K mark in Albert Park. I can't remember, it was either 26 flat or 26.20. It was something that ended in a 0. And I thought, well, I've got some consistency back. Albert Park's relatively flat if you've ever run through there or walked through there, whatever. What was good is that I eventually caught sight of the 3-hour group. So I had a bit of a target, a distant target, but something I could chip away at. So it gave a bit of motivation. Hey, I can catch these runners and then I'll be back on this pace. Chipped away. Got out of Albert Park down into St Kilda Beach there, heading towards the where they park the Spirit of Tasmania. Turn around and come back on the beach side. I caught that group. I eventually caught that group. Now, I actually slowed down. You think, oh, why would you slow down in a marathon outside of, natural progression of slowing because of energy levels and that later in the race? Because I'd sort of chipped away, I thought, let's relax a bit. We know their target is to get just under 3 hours, so they're on the pace that I want to be at. So I worked into the pack, ran a bit with the pack, moved towards the front, had a chat to a few other runners. About 25K or so, I moved off the front and I went, I'm going to go for it. I'm feeling comfortable. I think I can push on. I think this pace feels like it's holding me back. So take off, go around the turn, come back past Luna Park, come back towards Fitzroy Street. About halfway up Fitzroy Street is 30K. I went through 30K in 2:05:43. And you think back to when I did my first marathon, 2:05:54. This one, 2:05:43. Not much in it, but still under that, 2:07 XX that you need to be under 4:15 pace. It's a little bit iffy when you come toward, a bit further up that road. You've got half marathoners coming out of Albert Park who are running 1.5 to 2 minutes a K slower than you, so they merge in, which doesn't make life very easy when you're running a low 4-minute K and trying to weave through the traffic. But that's running. You've got to deal with the situations that are presented. Worked with a couple other runners, one from Victoria, one from South Australia, heading up St Kilda Road back towards the city. Going through 35K, you head into the Botanical Gardens area, and there's a bit of an uphill climb. It's a slight incline that goes for a couple of K. Sort of throws you off a little bit, but it's a good test at 35K. Get out the other side, come back down towards St Kilda Road again, and head back up towards towards Flinders Street Station and turn right and head back towards the MCG. A few hundred metres before you get back to the top of the road there is 39K. That was the first time I'd looked at my watch since 30K. Before 30K was the half marathon mark, so I wasn't looking at my watch very often because I dialed back. I thought the watch isn't helping me. And I just ran, and I just listened to the body and I listened to the brain, and everything turned around. And at 39K, I looked at my watch and I went, I'm going to break 3 hours. I knew at that point I was going to break 3 hours. So come back along, you turn down towards the MCG, come down Brunton Avenue, and you can't see the finish because it's obviously inside the ground. You turn left into the ground, and you're directly. If you look directly to your left when you run into the stadium, is the MCC member stand, which is the dark green seats when you look at it on TV. So you're on the Great Southern Stand side, the other side of them, as you come in. And I looked at my watch then, just as a last check, and it was 2:57 something. I'm not sure of the exact time, but it was 2:57 something. And I knew that was it, I was going to do it. Went round, 2:58.26 was the time. 2:58.33 was the gun time. 2:58.26 was my chip time. I'd achieved my goal, I'd broken 3 hours, and, I was as happy as could be. Yeah. Now this is where I come into the other bit, is when my dad said 18 months to 2 years, you got to think it was October 2008 when he said 18 months to 2 years. It was October 2010 when I ran the 2:58.26. It didn't sound right at the time, but overall it was correct. So just some tips to end up, probably 2 or 3 here. If you're running your first marathon, by all means in your training, look at your watch, take splits, give yourself a good idea of where you're at. But when you run your first marathon, avoid looking at your watch as much as possible. Don't even wear a watch if you can. I know that'll drive people bonkers because they need to have their Garmin or their Suunto or their Fitbit, or they need to have all the stats. They need more stats than a NASA rocket, but it's not really going to help you, because you've got your time should never be a goal in your first marathon. Can't say, I want to run this. No, you never run a marathon, you never finished a marathon. So, number one goal. No, you can mix and match these goals, I think, in 1 to 3. First goal is to finish. Regardless of time, your goal is to finish. Second one is to have fun. Have fun out there. It might be painful, it might be a world of hurt, but have as much fun as you can, You're out there on a journey. And the third one is give it your best. Even if you blow up and you're hurting, just push as much as you can. Don't just go, oh, well, it's all over, I might as well pull out, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, this is wrong, that's wrong, this hurts, that hurts. Everyone's in the same boat. Doesn't matter whether you're the first person across the line or the last, everyone's hurting at some point in that marathon. So don't go into that negative mindset of, oh, well, it's all over and this and that and the other. Just keep pushing along. Doesn't matter how long it takes you, you're going to cross that finish line. You got all the time in the world to recover after that, and you get your medal, and you've got a story, and you can tell people about that story, and it motivates people and it influences people, and that's a good thing. They might think you're crazy for doing it, but you set out to achieve the goal of running a marathon, and you did it. There's a lot of people who wouldn't get off the couch. So there's that. Second one is don't rely on pace runners or other runners as much as possible. They're there as a guide. I would really stick to what your plan was, what you've planned pre-race. So if you're hitting certain, it might be every 5K, you might check in on how you're going. Every 10K, I'd say, you probably got 3 time checks in the whole thing: 10K, half marathon split, and maybe 30K. They're probably your only times you need to check in at time-wise how you're going. But really, you're sort of getting those little mini intentions during the race. Okay, and you've got all your scenarios based off that. So the pace runners obviously are going to run at finish in a certain time. How they get there, it might be way out of whack on how you've planned to do it. So use them as a guide, but ideally don't follow them. Just based on experience, I've had 3-hour pace runners run at 2:48 pace, and I've had them run at 3:05 pace. So what big ends of the scale. And the third one is don't do anything in the marathon or in the race on race day that you haven't tried in training or preparation. As an example, people like to take gels in the marathon or whatever. If you haven't had gels, if you haven't had experience in having gels and being able to stomach them and digest them and all that sort of stuff while you're running, then I wouldn't recommend doing it in a race. Don't take them into a race, because your body's not used to processing those sorts of sugars and carbs and all that sort of stuff while you're running. So you're putting it into an unknown that it doesn't know what to do. Now, you might have stomach problems, it might throw you out, you could be throwing up, who knows. May happen, it may not happen, I don't know. But I would suggest if you're going to have gels in the marathon, try it out on your 25k, 30k, 35k long run of a weekend. Even though maybe over 15k, throw in a couple, maybe every 6 or 7k or something. Get down one and see how it goes. Just see how the body reacts to it and test that. Don't try anything new, because chances are it's going to backfire on you. So anyway, that's the story. That's a bit of advice. Happy to take any comments, questions, whatever, as usual. And we will see you in the next video.